My copy of Angela Carter's short story collection, The Bloody Chamber, is falling apart, partly because both my sister and I used it for A-level English literature, but mostly because I have read it countless times since, and it's one of those books that I can open on any page and just read. I will admit, though, that the first time I read it, I was uncomfortable and unused to such imagery. It's quite sexual in places, particularly in the story The Snow Child, which is the shortest in the collection, but it manages to include incest, paedophilia, and necrophilia. However, since then, I have understood more the imagery and the necessity for it. And I have fallen in love with the language, which is rich and evocative. The metaphors are imaginative and unusual. I'm going to talk about my two favourite stories in the collection. The first is Lady of the House of Love, which is a story based on both the legends of vampires and the story of Sleeping Beauty. It has themes of control, of youth, and of the contrast between the past and the future. Also, like all of the other stories, it has themes of gender, of femininity. From fairy tale tradition, it takes repetition. Both lines from traditional fairy tales, such as Fee, Fi, Fo, Fum, I Smell the Blood of an Englishman, which is from Jack and the Beanstalk, and lines that are unique to Angela Carter's writing. Specifically, lines such as, can a bird sing only the song it knows, or can it learn a new song? This ties it to the fairy tales that are rewritten throughout the collection. However, like the other stories in the collection, the language is too complex to be truly the word of mouth oral tradition that is most fairy tales. For example, my favourite paragraph in the entire collection is in this story, and it begins on the first page and reads, wearing an antique bridal gown, the beautiful queen of the vampires sits all alone in her dark, high house, under the eyes of the portraits of her demented and atrocious ancestors, each one of whom, through her, projects a baleful, posthumous existence. She counts out the tarot cards, ceaselessly constructing a constellation of possibilities, as if the random fall of the cards on the red plush tablecloth before her could precipitate her from her chill, shuttered room into a country of perpetual summer and obliterate the perennial sadness of a girl who is both death and the maiden. I find that, honestly, beautiful. My other favourite story in the collection is The Tiger's Bride, which is the second of two Beauty and the Beast tales. The first being the more traditional The Courtship of Mr. Lion, which follows the tale of Beauty and the Beast quite closely. This, however, has a much darker tone. Although darker possibly isn't the word, it just has a more cynical tone. And it's told in the first-person narrative of the Belle character. The first line is, my father lost me to the beast at cards. And the tone continues in that way. It is bitter, it is angry. But in the reverse of the Lady of the House of Love, the female character regains control of herself, while simultaneously accepting her more animalistic side. The two tales are very interesting, contrasted that way. I love the way the whole collection takes fairy tales and folk tales and turns them into these darker feminist tales. I'm also currently reading Angela Carter's collection of fairy tales, and I might do a video on those if that's something that people want to do. I have really fallen in love with Angela Carter's writing. I love the themes within it. And I love understanding more and more the context in which she was writing, the early days of feminism, the necessity that was there to shock. I think it makes it all the more powerful when you understand where she was coming from. The language, I will admit, is maybe complex, and perhaps it is not always easy to understand straight away what she is trying to say, which I do think means that it is one of those collections that really takes a little bit of studying to really fall in love with it. But I think it's worth that effort. I put the effort in, and I really very much have reaped the rewards. Thank you so much for listening to this and for watching my video. Please subscribe and like this in order to find out when my next video will be up. My links to Instagram and Patreon are in the description, so you can keep up with what's going on in terms of my art and my reading. I'll be back again, and thank you so much again for watching and listening.